And we're recording. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to Friday Without Belts. I am John.
And I'm Jeremy.
Welcome, folks. We had a little bit of a week off. I was on a boat for at least 11 hours. Jeremy, did you get on any sort of odd mode of transportation last week?
No, just fleet vehicles for my work, and that's about it. But I mean, one day I've got like a little Ford Focus, the next day I'm driving an F550. It's just, it was kind of all over the board. So little different, little different in size. So it's kind of whatever. But
I still miss my Corolla, but it is what it is. But all right. So good day, good morn, folks. We are back and better than ever. First and foremost, at the top, we are going to direct everyone to go down to the link in the description because we only post this thing on YouTube anyway, and to please go to the Hawaiian United Okinawa Association's GoFundMe page to help fund the rebuilding of Shuri-jo. A little bit of update on that. So it's been found that about 400 artifacts are in that building are now gone, and more or less there's nothing left that they can really rebuild from. So sad news, but you can do something to help. And for the moment, we are going to direct you to this GoFundMe page. Pretty much every episode or any video we throw up from now until we get things, until the Okinawan Karate Association gets off and rolling with something. Please support them, whoever comes up with some sort of donation page. I know it's a lot to ask for a lot of people, but every little bit helps. So, Jeremy, you wanted to kind of maybe chime on that?
I mean, oh, absolutely. I mean, instead of having a million different GoFundMe pages, let's just keep supporting one or two places that do and move forward that way. So, yeah, absolutely.
The current news is that the government, the Japanese government, and the Okinawan government have vowed to rebuild it, but it took a long time for it to get rebuilt, and they actually can't rebuild it the same way they did before. So some interesting histories come out of all of this. One is they literally can't rebuild it the same way because they use trees they can no longer harvest from Taiwan. So if anything comes from this, it's a better, environmentally safer and friendlier Shuri-jo. Hopefully one that'll kind of withstand any of anything like this snapping again. So anyway, so Jeremy, you want to be like really doom and gloomy again this week? Because I'm not feeling it too much.
No, I'm pretty much done with doom and gloom. I kind of want to be a little more positive and stuff. So.
That's what we aim for.
Yeah.
So I think what would be a good place to get out of, especially this kind of rough patch in Karate Okinawa's history right now, is kind of talk about the dumbest things we've ever done in training. Jeremy, I think you brought this up a while back to me when we were talking about topics.
Oh yeah, it's I mean, after training for 25, almost 30 years, in different dojos and stuff, there's always going to be something that was really stupid that you did, and either you did or you saw. And I was thinking about a few days ago, and there's another story we'll get into. It wasn't me, I can honestly say that, but it was almost cartoon-esque what happened in the dojo. And I I guess I can start off with that one. I don't
Sure.
know. Um,
We can go from recent and then kind of pull it back.
yeah, well, this was several years ago. I was training at, oh, I don't even want to say it because if that person's listening, it may have a tie back to it. But I was trained in one of the schools, and we had a handful of instructors there. And there was one instructor, his name was Mark. That's all I'll say. And Mark was extreme old school. And he was the kind of instructor, when he'd tell you to do something, he wanted you to do it. Like he'd say, hit me, and you go and you might not hit him full force. He goes, "Well, you a wuss, hit me, come on." So, I mean, he intense guy. Loved. I mean, one of my favorite people I've ever met in training. I mean, just nicest guy you ever met. But boy, once he was on the floor, I mean, he was dead serious. So one night we're kind of going over a handful of Tuite techniques and stuff, and it wasn't terribly serious, but I mean, it was like we were looking at different angles, looking at maybe different combinations to change some stuff up. And a guy came in to just kind of observe a class, but he'd had some training in karate, and he knew some of the katas, and I don't know where, but it was like, all right, whatever. So he observed the class, and then he comes in the following week, and he comes in like in this bright red Power Rangers outfit.
Why?
It gets, this is just the beginning of it. I mean, it gets a little better. And the reason why I bring up Mark is he comes in, bows in, all this kind of stuff, and all of us, we're just kind of looking at it like, do we let this guy on the floor? Do we kick him through the window? This is just stupid. You don't do this. But it's like, okay, we're gonna be nice. Okay,
Was it Halloween?
No, no, no. So
Was it the fall?
no, it was like dead summer.
Okay.
Summer. I mean, it was really pretty outfit, but I mean, I wouldn't have trained in it, but actually I wouldn't have wore it. I don't look like a doofus, but anyway, so we're just kind of going over stuff, and we're trying to get this guy involved, and then as we're working on some of these Tuite techniques and stuff, the guy is almost in the class, and he goes, "Well, that's not going to work." And the four of us that were working on this before, we're just kind of puzzled, and we kind of ignored him. He goes, "No, really, that's not going to work." And then Mark, as I mentioned before, really serious guy. The next thing comes out of his mouth is, "Oh, really?" And I mean, it was just like, if you didn't catch the tone of his voice, it's like you really didn't want to mess with him right now. And so, anyway, so he goes, "Well, since you're the expert, show us what will work." And so he tries to do something. The next thing, I don't even know what he did. But the next thing I see Mark doing, he's got this, we had like this half wall to kind of break up like the seated area and the dojo floor, so people, kind of a barrier. The next thing I know, Mark's got his head pinned up against this thing, choking him out against the half wall, yelling at him at the top of his voice, "How's your technique working now? Huh? How's that Power Ranger outfit looking?" And I mean, just yelling at this guy. And all we were like is like, "We need to leave. We're out of here. We're not witnessing this." It was funny. And a few years back, it was about 5 or 6 years, we were all together at a restaurant. We were talking about funny things, and I brought that up. And all of a sudden, Mark was literally in tears laughing. He goes, "I'd totally forgotten I did that." It's just, Needless to say, we didn't see the guy ever again. I
Well,
hope.
I mean, that's just.
That's just asking
I
for it,
feel like you told me about this at some point, but now that you're telling it now, I'm just like, I wasn't there at that time, was I?
No, no, no,
No,
no.
it wasn't around. It wasn't around that time. So
No, it was a different Power Ranger guy, but no,
there have been multiple.
no. This was, yeah, like this had to have been at least 15 years ago. Yeah, it was hilarious, but man, that was one of the funniest things I ever saw happen in a dojo.
I
But
mean,
yeah,
that's just asking for trouble, but yeah, that's. I mean,
you
I
know,
think
I felt sorry for the guy, but when you have the arrogance to go up to somebody and say, "Oh, that technique's not going to work," inside someone else's dojo, in front of everybody, um,
and then add on top of that, you've decided to wear one of the most ridiculous things you could even. I don't know. Is that man must have courage of steel because he decided to walk out the door saying, "This is the perfect thing to wear to this school that I have no experience in, and so I can act however I want to."
I
So
mean, if you're going to call out somebody in a school in front of everybody, you better be able to back it up 1,000%. Otherwise, whatever you get, it's what you get. I mean, I learned that a long time ago. It's like, man, you don't walk in someone else's school and be completely disrespectful. Because,
no,
man,
no.
you're going to get hammered more than likely, and unless unless it's someone who is completely incompetent and really is going to hurt somebody. And I've I've gone into schools and I've done that before. I've done that a couple times and basically
Yeah,
call people out. It's like I don't recommend doing that, but if it's something they're showing and it's something that's going to get somebody hurt or killed, yeah, I'll say something about it. It's just, and sometimes I'll call the instructor over. It's like, hey, have you just thought about this, or this? I don't want to call you out or anything like that. But
no, because then you end up. I mean, in this person's case, they ended up losing face, but at the end of the day, you don't want to start going into people's. I've always gone back and forth on this, where it's like, is it somebody's business? Yes. Are they kind of hurting rep? Yes. But we don't live in that era where we shouldn't have to worry about that. So
yeah, yeah, I mean, you shouldn't, but I mean, sometimes that's a whole nother discussion, a whole nother
yeah,
day. Anyway,
yeah. I guess, man, getting off of that subject, because
sorry.
this guy seemed like a little bit of a tinfoil hat, and talk about our other friend who was a little bit tinfoil hat. Um, let's just say we believe he's either in the witness protection program or has gone back to home planet because we don't know where he is right now. But this guy, he was good at a couple things, and a lot of people were impressed with what he was good at. Um, he was able to help a lot of people who were able to employ his services, and suffice to say, people we people enjoyed what he was able to do for them. However, I'll recount a time I went to this person's house. When I was a young lad, he invited me down to his house, and he said, "Hey, come on down." We were kind of about maybe just a couple hours apart in terms of locations, so it was fairly easy to get down there on a bus. So before the age of megabus, by the way. So So I went down there and he picks me up and we have dinner and I'm kind of young and eager and he's all full of stories and you got when you're young and there's an older person talking to you and telling all these interesting stories and he's up late with you and then it's a kind of a martial arts experience and he's kind of showing you stuff and you're really excited. So there's a part of training I don't really think we talked about too much on the podcast, but Makiwara.
Yeah.
So, Jeremy, would you mind explaining to the good people who are listening what exactly Makiwara training is?
It's, I mean, I've got a funny answer and somewhat serious answer. I mean, technically, technically it should be used for conditioning your hands, hitting a board or something heavy with the correct knuckles and things like that. And so, I mean that would be the probably more correct response of what it would be. Another response would be prolonged torture, but it just depends. Now I've got a story about that one too. So it's kind of,
Yeah, well, maybe right off this one with it, because the Makiwara is supposed to be like a 2x4, tapered up with some straw or some cover in the top where you actually hit. It's supposed to be the biggest thing with it. It's supposed to be pliable, right? It's not supposed to be anything solid. So
right.
when you hit like a punching bag, it's supposed to have a give to it because if something doesn't have a give to it, you're just going to end up going force against force. And maybe when you're doing kumite or you're doing sparring or really get into a fight, you're gonna deal with that. But when you're training, that is not something you want to work up against necessarily. So this guy, very, very kind of tinfoil hat in his mannerisms, as it were. We were in his backyard. We were doing training. We kind of very kind of loose idea of a day of training. But again, to my young mind, I was like, "Yeah, this is awesome! I'm learning all sorts of ancient secret techniques." Looking back on it, it was all right, but uh, you get enthusiastic when you're young. And he asked me, "He's like, hey, have you done Makiwara yet?" I'm like, "No, not really," because initial school I started with wasn't all that traditional. So he says, "All right, hold on a minute," and I'm like outside stretching out, getting all excited, and he brings out a board and some rope and ties the board to a tree. And he tells me, "All right, go hit the board." I'm like, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah, you have to make your knuckles like steel. They have to be as hard as rocks." And he starts hitting boards and trees, and he's like, "See, it's good for you." And then, like, he hits me a couple times, and I'm like, "Okay, whoa." And then he's like, "Hit the tree." I'm like, "I hit the tree, I hit the board, and I hit the tree, and I hit the board." I'm doing this a couple times, and I don't want to ever say this is kind of like Stockholm syndrome, but when you're at
Yeah.
someone's house and they become very, they're very kind of into what they believe, you kind of goes one of two ways. You either kind of go along with what they're doing or you don't. Um, Again, very young, didn't really know what was going on. Suffice to say, my hands were hurting at the end of this. He said, when you go home, just hit trees. If you don't have a Makiwara, just hit the tree. And so I go home, and it was like a couple weeks later. I'm like, man, I haven't hit trees lately. And so I go up to a tree and just start pounding on one. And just, I remember my like hand just got like black and blue and swollen after that. And I was like, man, I must not be doing this right because my hands are all messed up. And so I let my hand heal for a couple days, and then I'm just like, all right, I'll wait to go see this guy again. And I'm talking to other people about this, and they're like, "Are you an idiot?" we got to talk to this guy because you shouldn't be doing this. Not how Makiwara training works at all. And they go into explaining what I just explained, where there's pliability and there's resistance, but you can move it, and you're supposed to move it because it's about positioning and making sure everything, all the structure is right, and not by going out and beating the crap out of trees, because the tree is gonna win unless you've got an axe.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, this is impossibly one of the dumbest things I was ever told to do in my training, and the dumbest thing I ever did.
Yeah. No. I will. I'll be more than happy to second you on that one, but that's okay. Yes, I will agree with that. That's one of the dumbest things you've done while you're training. Yes, but I'm here to support you, John. So, but
I appreciate it, but I mean, you know, it's suffice to say, this person, our tinfoil hat friend, may he be at peace wherever he is. Kind of like wandered off into the wilderness like about a year after that, and no one's really heard from him since. So kind of like that's that. But you know,
happy trails, buddy. Yeah, no,
yeah,
I remember. He was
I think
super nice guy. Super
what?
nice guy. I remember.
Yeah. But I think the thing to take away from that is that like you always have to be a little more critical of what someone's asking you to do, especially when it comes to hitting trees or like doing something extreme like that. Like if they can clearly prove to you what they're doing's, you know, like I've seen like stuff where it's like hit somebody in the neck and learn to take it. Right? Like it's almost equivalent to that, which the difference is there's like videographic evidence of people doing that, and there's a trick to what they're doing that makes it work. But going out and trying to hit solid objects and expecting them to break on contact, there's also a trick to that too. It's called, you know, practice and, you know, aiming in the right place in order to make it work. So
yeah. No, I agree with that. So, but yeah, I definitely have a Makiwara story as well. I mean, one of the previous dojos I was at, we had several Makiwaras set up along, you know, near the wall, and it's kind of, I mean, it was
proper
really kind of, huh?
Proper
Yeah,
Makiwaras, they weren't just growing out of the ground.
no. And it was really kind of neat how he had set them up. He'd use like modified car springs and stuff to give it,
right,
you know, not just resistance but also resistance back. But we had a challenge in the it's been so long ago I don't remember if it was something that was student led or if it was instructor led. I don't remember, but we had a challenge to where it's like hit the Makiwara so many times until blood hit the floor, you know, and it was like, and I did not win, but I took it to heart, and I went after it. I mean, it blood definitely went down the pole on it, but it was not one of my brighter things I ever did in my training. So, you know, but I mean, there are parts of it that I'm like, you know, I'm kind of glad I did it to that level of intensity. But I don't know if that was such a good thing or not. I mean, I don't know if it was good for my hands or not, or, you know, so I keep going back and forth on it, but I'm kind of in the middle on it. It's like, it's probably not the best thing to do. It's probably, you know, pretty dumb, but.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's also like when you talk about doing things like that, like, I mean, you can use like muscle training as a good example, where it's, you know, if you're just starting out muscle training, if you're like lifting or something like that, you're not going to lift up 300 pounds on your first go.
Right.
Because when you do that stuff, you're tearing apart, you're supposed to be tearing apart microfibers and tearing out the muscle and rebuilding it with protein, letting it rest, and then, you know, kind of going from there.
Right.
The idea of both the makiwara and kind of the sanshin training, where people like hit you while you're doing kata and stuff, is to do something similar to that, but just with like bone structure and endurance. But it's not supposed to be to the point where your knuckles are bleeding or you're coming home with bruises and all this stuff. And
Yeah. So, like I said, it probably wasn't my brightest thing I ever did, but that's one of them that wasn't too bright. And another one I remember, it was after I came back from Okinawa, and I'd brought back a handful of bottles of Aomori. And
how'd you make that work?
huh?
How'd you make that work?
It was before they started banning liquids in the cabin and all that kind of
Wow.
stuff. I think like the next year they started banning, you couldn't bring that kind of stuff. But anyway, I brought a couple bottles back for the dojo and stuff, and so we're like, all right, this is cool. And one night we were just kind of sitting around, and we were actually drinking shots of Aomori.
At the dojo?
You know, huh?
At
The dojo? Yeah. Yeah. And all of a sudden, we got a brilliant idea. Let's have a nunchaku class. What?
That sounds like an Aomori induced idea.
Yeah, it was. I'm surprised no one got killed on that, but it was. I'll say this. I mean, it tested a lot of our flexibility. Whoa! I mean, there was by the end of it, there was no technique. It was the only technique was duck. I mean, that was about it. I mean, how quickly could you duck from getting swung and hit in the head with a pair of nunchakus from your buddy who you're working with right next? I mean, we had a handful of us get hit, but it was just like, holy! I mean, yeah, there were a couple people that definitely had a little too much. They finally got to the point where they just laid down on the ground. They're just swinging stuff. Yeah, it's just it, it, it was funny. But
Why? Why would you?
what? Why do you do half the? You know, it was funny. The next week we were like, okay, rule number one: we're not before training. We're not drinking any more. It's like no more of that.
That's an after training thing.
So it was just, yeah, that was not one of our brighter moments. It was definitely a learning experience. I'll say that much. But I don't know what we learned from it, but it was comical as well. So it was kind of it's just
Well, the alcohol culture in Okinawa is such that that wouldn't be necessarily out of the range of things that could happen, but
yeah,
certainly less than likely, I think, these days. But
yeah.
what kind of contest were you doing? Like just
No, it wasn't a contest. We were just, hey, let's have a nunchaku class, and we're all half lit. Yeah, cool. All right, let's do it. Yeah, so just everybody's working. It was just, oh yeah, that wasn't too good. So
but it sounds like a blast.
it was something. Oh man, but
I mean, because the only nunchaku I have are super heavy,
oh yeah,
so
yeah. All of us had, yeah, all of us had basically the same kind of nunchuck. I mean, roughly, it's There were too many light ones in the group, so it was. But yeah, it was. That was quite entertaining. But yeah. So,
Well, I mean, that does remind me of there. It reminds me of one. I'll tell a personal story after this one, but there's one kind of really embarrassing story I kind of heard secondhand, and it was at a school that taught Kobudo and taught kids, but generally didn't teach kids Kobudo.
mm,
So, you don't, you always got to be careful when it comes to weapons, especially with kids.
oh,
I
yeah.
was kind of lucky when I was like 14. I started really, working with weapons, and I kind of got a good sense for, how to use them. Um, but a friend of mine had gone to he was assistant teaching at one school, and there was a guy there who had been doing karate for a long time, but really didn't have a mind for necessarily safety.
No, yeah.
So the guy had my friend had gone into the school. He was getting there later, and this other guy was teaching the kids class. And so the guy walks in, and all of the kids are on the floor with different weapons,
Come on.
swinging them around, kind of left, right, and center. And I'm not talking just like bows. I'm talking like tonfa, kama, shucks, sai. Like the
Was
because I mean they had like almost everything there.
were the commas sharp? I mean, that's
They were thankfully they were wood, but I mean
okay. Okay.
kind of
Well,
get Christmas
that,
story. You could put your eye out, and I'll never forget.
explain that.
I'll never forget. I'll never forget the words that the explanation that was given for why this was happening was, well, the kids got to experiment with weapons sometime. And you got to think of the three words in that sentence that should never be in the same sentence at the same time is kids experimenting and weapons.
Well, and sometime there's no. You can add that fourth word in there because you don't have any I don't know any rigor around. It's like I just sometime what
Just
the heck.
just sometime, like, you gotta get to it sometime. Like, it's like, what are you talking about? Like, now, there is a structured way of teaching kids the weapons. I've seen it happen.
Mhm.
You can have a whole group of kids with chucks, even solid wood chucks,
Yeah,
but to have the kids just kind of flail around weapons,
no, not a good thing.
that's what we call a bad idea.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
yeah, that makes me think of another story. What was it? We were training one night, and one of the guys had just gone through. I think it was carpal tunnel. I think it was carpal tunnel surgery. So he couldn't move his wrists, and the main weapon he always used was sai. And so we're doing weapons class, and so he's like, "Well, I can't pick these up, and I can't pick these up right now." So anyway, another instructor went to the back. He's like, "Hold on, let's see what we got." And we had a we had a pair of the aluminum sai. The way you ever seen those?
well, like, you're just basically taking it like this, like aluminum, and like making
No,
a sigh,
yeah. I mean, it was
tin
a
foil.
sai made out of aluminum. I mean, it was your normal size, 20, 21-inch sai, but it was all aluminum. But the funny thing is, I mean, most sai weigh what, 3 to 5 pounds.
Give or take, yeah.
Yeah, give or take, whatever, depending on quality, balance, all that kind of happy stuff. This thing weighed maybe 10 ounces. I mean, so the guy, even though he had carpal tunnel syndrome, I don't know, he went to flip, just do a flip, just a simple basic, flip out, flip back. When he flipped it back, when he was trying to flip it back, it went out of his hands and it went straight up into the ceiling and stuck right into the
Oh,
ceiling. And everybody's just kind of looking at it. It's like, wow, that's pretty cool. How'd you do that? Just-
the stuff that's made out of essentially tinfoil.
I mean,
Just
he
get
still
stuck
had
up into the
enough.
ceiling after flipping it one time.
I mean, it was like a drop ceiling and stuff. So I mean, it was basically styrofoam ceiling, but it was just like, and he just looked up, and all of us looked up at it, and we stopped. And was like, wow, that's pretty cool. New technique, huh? That's pretty cool. So he's like, somebody get up there and get those down so I can practice.
Hold on, he was the guy with carpal tunnel syndrome in his hands, right?
Yeah.
So his technique he needed to work that night was not anything to do with his hands, but was everything to do with his feet, so he could jump high enough to get his damn sai out of the ceiling. That's what he should have been working on that night, not telling other people to go fix his problems.
But I mean, it was just hilarious. I mean, we're just kind of watching. It was like, oh, yeah. It's funny. Over the years, probably the funniest two classes have been Psi classes and Nunchaku classes.
Why? Because people get drunk in nunchaku classes?
Well, people, I the same guy that did the Psi, he's like, I don't want to learn Nunchaku. I have no. And finally, we talked to me. I was like, look, this is one of the beginning weapons we teach people and kids, and he goes, fine, I'll learn.
That is the weirdest attitude I've ever heard anybody give towards learning anything in martial arts.
Well, and it was like, all right. So anyway, the part where you do the little hop, you do a little hop and swing it and then come down,
I know what you're talking about.
Like, one of the katas that we know. So there's a spot where you hop up and you swing it around, then you come down. Well, we were teaching him this, and it was interesting. When he went to hop, he jumped straight up. I mean, just about as hard as he could, and he didn't move his arm. It just kept going, and it was like the Ewok that was swinging the thing around and came around, the rock, and he comes around and wraps around and smacks him in the face. Literally, that's what happened. And this was not the Aomori night, mind you. And it wrapped around, hit him in the face, and knocked him out, and he fell flat to the floor. And he gets up and he goes, somebody else can teach this. I'm never picking these things up again. He never did. So,
I mean, that's kind of also a story of the guy creating self-fulfilling prophecy, because he hated it so much that he probably wasn't concentrating on what he was doing. To the point where he actually ended up hurting himself because he didn't want to learn one thing that he was asked to learn. Oh well.
Psi, I mean, how many times have I stabbed myself in the arm with those, or yeah, I mean, when you mess with them a long time, something will go wrong, and guess what? You make a mistake. But yeah, the other side example, the guy was coming back to put it back behind his head and then flip it out. And when he went to bring it back, he didn't adjust to the side of his head, and he hit himself right on the sides of the temple, both sides, and boom.
With the tines?
Yeah, well, not with the little. I mean, with the main with the
Oh
main.
Lord, with like the center time.
Yeah,
Oy.
yeah. I mean, it I don't know what it did, but all I know is he dropped him, and it might have gave him a concussion. I don't know, but I mean, he did it hard too. Boom! And I mean, everybody's like, "What the?" And he's just stumbling. He just drops him, and he goes, sits down on the floor, and he goes, "I'm done. That's it." And so, yeah, he liked the nunchaku. He didn't like size, so, but hey, it's all good.
Just flip the two guys and you're fine.
Yeah, I mean and that's kind of what we were. You guys can stay away. Don't do that. But I mean, both of them were great guys. I mean, I remember those kind of things, but I did several dumb things myself, so it's like,
Yeah, we can go down we could have maybe 6 episodes on the massively stupid things we've ever done. Um, so
I,
this
I,
well is far from dry, I believe.
oh yeah, no, I mean, I think I told this to you in one of the previous episodes. What was it? Probably one of the single dumbest things I ever did was right after the first time I went to go see uh, Mr. Yada's seminar, and I'm watching him knock somebody out. Boom, boom, boom. Next class, I come back into class. I tell Robbie, I'm like, I don't think that worked. And he goes, "Oh, really?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I don't think that works." And he goes, "You want me to show you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I don't think that works. I want to see if that works." And what was funny is Vicky and her mom were there, and they're like, this is not a good idea. Whenever somebody from Voice of Reason tells you this is not really a good idea, you probably ought to listen.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I want to see that this works. And I mean, Robbie's got this smile about halfway up his ears, like, oh yeah, this is gonna be fun. And he goes, okay, ready? Boom. I mean, I'm just like, whoa. It works. So it was one of the dumbest things, but in hindsight, looking back on it, it's like it made a believer in what I was studying though too. So
Right.
I mean,
Well, and it's also like you that goes because all of these things that we were talking about today all have a lesson at the end, and because with everything, if anything, martial arts is reflective and always self-correcting.
and don't wear a
You
Power
know,
Ranger suit to the dojo.
exactly. Like, you don't wear a Power Ranger suit to the dojo. Don't start calling people out. Don't believe people who wear tinfoil hats. Don't drink before going to practice. You know, have a
But
better attitude when you're learning a damn kata. Uh, um, but one of the biggest things that I think, if you're unwilling to do this, I think that is a real point against you, unless you have a real reason. Is you have to feel the technique, and you have to kind of know what it is. That doesn't mean you need to get constantly beat on, because that's another problem. But yeah, no, I would agree that it's a dumb thing. There's dumb thing there. You can learn from dumb things, but the biggest thing is to not do the same dumb thing over and over again.
yeah, yeah, I mean, the best way to really learn is learn from your mistakes. If you're not going to want to learn from your mistakes, what good are you doing?
Yeah.
I mean, you're never going to be perfect every time.
Right, right. I think one of the one I think I'll close out with is when I was teaching a college club, and it was kind of at the height of the college club that I was teaching, because it was like, I believe it was the end of the winter term, and it was everyone was kind of, we had a very very big class, and I was like all about, like, yeah, I finally have a big class of students, yeah, I'm gonna really nail them, like drill them tonight. And I was, running them through exercises, running them around the room, running them through kata, doing all this stuff. And I have everyone line up, and all we're going to do is very, very, very basic thing. just kicks down the room. Right? Very easy, very simple. So the one thing, for all this like over enthusiasm that I had when I was teaching that class was I forgot that night to warm up. I forgot to stretch. I forgot to stretch everyone out because that's normally what you would do. But because I was so concerned to get everybody, 50 push-ups, 50 sit-ups, all this other stuff. But the simplest thing, and I didn't notice this, but my legs were actually super tense up at the time. So, all right, and I just count out each, or like one, and I kick out with my right leg. Right leg immediately seizes up, completely stiffs out, completely, 100%, ain't going nowhere. And then I'm just like, all right, whatever. Knee, and I kick out the other leg. Same exact thing happens. And I just kind of hobble over to the side, sit down, and say, like, everyone kind of tell by the look on my face what just happened. And I just like, keep going, 3, 4, 5, and just have them do that for like 5-10 minutes. Just nothing but front kicks and side kicks up and down the room while I'm trying to unstiff my legs for a decent 15-20 minutes.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of the most basic things, but one of the stupidest things that has ever happened to me, that I could not, despite all the other stuff I was trying to get my students to do, could not just do a basic kick down the floor because I forgot to stretch out. So that was dumb.
Yeah. I mean, definitely have several stories. One of the other ones that I remember was, I think the lesson was, you definitely got to push yourself, but also know when your limits are getting hit. Because we're training the Subarito training. I probably the first 2 months I started training. I mean, hadn't even taken a belt test or anything, and so I mean we're pushing hard. I mean just boom, 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 and I could feel my legs were starting to shake. I could feel basically my whole body was starting to shake. You got that salty taste in your mouth right before you're about ready to, yak and everything else.
Right.
So I go to put the Subarito up on the wall, and I basically pass out into the weapons rack, and it comes crashing down on me. And I mean, I'm barely with it. I'm trying to put this stuff back up, and I mean, Robbie just, I mean, he has all get out, which I don't blame him. But it's my fault. But and I get back in line. I mean, I'm still dazed over. I mean, I'm still about ready to pass out, and I mean, he's just yelling at me about 4 to 6 inches from my face, like, "You ever do that again? There's 2 ways out. You can either walk out or I'm kicking you through that door. You don't ever do something that's dumb again." It's just like, I'm just like, I don't even know what happened. I was just, but I mean, after that, I did learn, once I had a certain feeling, while I was training, I'd push back just a little bit just to make sure I didn't pass out or stuff like that. And I mean, it happened one or two other times, but not in the weapons rack. But I did pass out a couple times. But just hardcore workouts and stuff. But yeah, that was one of those things. Like, I was new enough to it where I was just ignorant, stupid. I didn't know any better, but I mean, I learned, hey, there's an etiquette and it needs to be followed, period. So,
Well, and like maybe also what hopefully Robbie had learned in that was that, got to kind of check in on your students too,
yeah,
because there is something to be said for that as well. Because if you're not checking in, like there's a big problem if you're just kind of let your students collapse over and you're not checking in on them. That's just being a negligent teacher, which I don't think he was trying to be. But
no, I don't, I never, I've never thought that, of him and stuff. But I mean, there were certain things that I would go through and things like that, and other students would go through it as well too. And I mean, after that happened, he'd always have like honey or something there to get people's blood sugar back up so that they could recover pretty quickly and things like that. So I mean, I think it definitely was a learning experience for him as well too.
cool.
So but anyway, so
So the end of all this, we just need to learn from our stupid mistakes. Don't do what we did. Make your own stupid mistakes because you'll learn more from them.
and then report back to us so we don't do them. So all right, there you
go. Now we have a public record of our terrible mistakes. What are you working on? What?
I said, oh, that's okay. I mean, I've been pretty public about my stupidity for a long time, so that's all right.
It's like exploitation. I've been exploited all my life.
Yeah, exactly. I always said if I can't laugh at myself, I can't laugh at anything else. So, but what's interesting is I actually had somebody come by and they wanted to just work on some techniques. So basically, I've just kind of been working on some basic, going back to some real basic Tuite and some combinations again. So kind of getting a little bit off of kata and things like that. And guy's a Marine, and so he learned a lot of different stuff. So he was just like, I just kind of want to do something a little different. And he goes, I know you do some stuff, and so we were just kind of. He wanted to see more of what I was teaching, and so I was just kind of okay, boom, 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 and I think that might develop into a little bit more regular training partners. So that's cool.
So that's what we all need. I've been because of kind of little. I hate this because you got actually a bigger injury and you've like been able to get into training partner. I was like, I tore a little bit in my calf muscle. I need to take it easy for a week. But after I got kind of through that, I'm like, I think I'm back on my regular training schedule. Is just getting. It's like if you've been doing the same thing for like almost 2 months, and then suddenly the doctor's like, "Don't do that." It kind of ruins your whole schedule to a degree because it's like, what do you have to kind of fill that time? But what I've been working on is I don't want to say this out loud and so much on the podcast, but I already kind of put it on Facebook. We're putting together a kind of collection of video essays and working on getting the first one out, but because I want to try to get the audio as good as I can, having some new equipment shipped in by Wednesday, so hopefully by the end of this week you'll hopefully see that, but if not, you'll see it soon enough. And just working on my recovery stuff. And after you've been away from something for a while, and Jeremy, I'm sure you can relate to this, is that when you feel you actually can do it, you feel you're much stronger in it than you were before. So that's a surprising feeling today, or I've had recently.
Sometimes, and kind of ended from my perspective, is sometimes you feel like you can do it stronger. The one problem is sometimes you push yourself over the limit and then re-injure or redo something, then you're back out, and Not that I've ever done that before. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, that's kind of yeah. I've done that a handful of times. It's like, then it makes you even madder. So
Yeah, and so I'm trying to take it one step to make sure that that doesn't happen, but at the same time, kind of try to stay back on the train. So,
yeah, but yeah, I'll use a quote from Dave Ramsey. It's like approach it like it's a crock pot, not a microwave. So
indeed.
so
All right, cool. Well, that's all I believe we got. Jeremy, anything you want to say to close out?
no, I'm good. Have a good night.
All right,
Good day
folks.
and good morning. So
Yeah. Thanks for listening always. Keep training and do not forget to try to donate to getting Shuri Geo back up and running again. Till then, see you next time, folks. Keep training.
take care.